Hey everyone, welcome back to the library. It's Tabletop Tuesday, and as we're extending our summer reading theme of Tales and Tales throughout July, I'm continuing the animal theme in our weekly topics. Today, we're going to take a look at ideas for animal companions in your Dungeons & Dragons campaigns. When you think of animal companions, you might first think of druids with their magically enhanced creature allies, or rangers with their highly trained pets. Wizards and warlocks can attain familiars through arcane study or as gifts from their patrons. But not everyone who has an animal companion is bound to it through a class ability. The fun of D&D is that it is a game of imagination, and most DMs, unless they're just totally hard-nosed and not interested in bending rules in favor of fun, will allow players of any class to take on some form of animal companion, whether it is as a combat-ready party member or maybe purely aesthetic. Sometimes all it takes is a good handle animal roll or some clever role-playing to calm and befriend an angry wolf. This wolf might join the party as an NPC at this point, meaning the DM retains control of the creature, but the more the players bond with it, the easier it is to teach it to cooperate with combat tactics. Earlier iterations of 5th edition animal companions struggled because they could not level up as players did, making that same wolf incredibly susceptible to high-level threats. Tosh's Cauldron of Everything introduces a rule system called the Sidekick system, which allows companion NPCs, both animal and non-animal, to gain levels of experience that still keep them below the powers of a player character, but greatly increases their odds of survival in a dangerous, high-level combat situation. Sometimes, a DM might require some creative thinking from a player in order for their acquisition of an animal companion. This might come in the form of a backstory, maybe even reflected in the PC's background choice. Depending on your DM, you might be allowed to make a case for certain companions using a healthy dose of imagination. If you need a little help finding some inspiration, here are a few ideas that you can use as a template for your own character and companion. Most players gravitate toward animal companions for use as mounts. I've had players come up with such exotic beasts as tigers and bears for their steeds of choice. The general rule in 5e that can't readily be ignored is that any mount you take must be at least one size category larger than you. Meaning if you're playing a human, elf, dwarf, or equivalent, you're a medium creature, so your mount must be large, like a horse, direwolf, or hippogriff. One alternative path is playing a small race such as a halfling or gnome, then you can take mounts like warhounds or panthers. Another more inventive approach would be to pay a wizard to create a collar with an enlarged creature spell ensorcelled into it that you can take and use on your animal of choice and make it large enough to ride. This is of course up to a DM's discretion. Maybe you're a fighter from a nomadic tribe of plainsfolk who raise elk as mounts or wolves instead of horses. Maybe you're a wizard who accidentally enlarged your toad familiar permanently, but use it now as a mount, especially in swampy regions that it can traverse easier than any other mount. You might be the cleric of a god or goddess that a certain animal embodies or is significant to your religion, and so you've trained one as a mount. The other go-to reasoning for an animal companion is to bolster a party's ranks. These are especially more common in smaller parties. Maybe you're a young wizard traveling with only one or two other adventurers, and you've brought along your mastiff that you've raised from a puppy during the days at the academy. Or perhaps you're a fighter who once nursed a wounded hawk back to health and have bonded with it since then, bringing it along on adventures to scout for trouble. You could be a rogue with a pet rat that you've trained to slip under the cracks of doors in order to unlock the other side, or trained it to pick pockets. You could take inspiration from the beloved ranger Minx and go with an entirely unusual companion, such as Boo, the miniature giant space hamster. If your DM says it makes sense, then go with it. Your animal companion does not need to be entirely corporeal either. Dristo Erden, perhaps the most famous D&D hero of all, travels with a magical panther called Guinevere, who is a denizen of the astral plane. He summons it using an onyx figurine that is enchanted to bring it back and forth from its home plane. The caveat is that Guinevere must rest and recover on the astral plane for a few days before being summoned again. Your DM might decide to go with this route to assign a party an animal companion with some limitations. That's all for today's Tabletop Tuesday. I hope these tips and ideas help you find the perfect animal companion for you and your group. And happy gaming, everyone. We'll see you next time.